At 4:03 a.m., the screen of her phone glowed against the dim light of the hotel room, the message half-typed, her thumb trembling above the send button. Something came up. 2 words that sounded harmless enough, ordinary even, yet heavy enough to split her life in two. Amara stared at them for a long time before finally pressing send. Her heart thudded so loudly she swore the man sleeping beside her could hear it. The air felt thick, like the room itself was holding its breath. Beside her, Ryan stirred, murmured something in his sleep, and rolled over. The soft rise and fall of his chest, once comforting, now made her chest constrict. The sheets still carried his cologne, that woody scent that had once made her dizzy with excitement. But tonight it only made her feel sick. She slipped out of bed carefully, the floor cool beneath her bare feet. She didn't look back. The hotel window framed the dark skyline of Karachi, scattered lights blinking like distant witnesses. It was too quiet, too still, too much like the moment before everything falls apart. She picked up her phone again. A notification pulsed on the screen. A new message from her husband, Aariz. "Is everything okay? Why aren't you home yet?" Her throat went dry. The guilt pressed hard against her ribs, but she typed quickly. Something came up. "I'll be home in the morning." And she hit send before she could think twice. She stood there, staring at her reflection in the window. Messy hair, lipstick faded, eyes wide and wild with shame. She didn't recognize the woman looking back at her. Amara had never planned for any of this. That was the lie she told herself most often. It started months ago when she and Aariz had grown distant, their conversations reduced to logistics. Bills, errands, the kids' school schedules. The spark had flickered out quietly, like a candle burning to its end. Then came Ryan, her new project manager, charming, confident, the kind of man who noticed things. "You have this way of biting your lip when you're thinking," he'd said once, during a late-night office meeting. "It's distracting." She'd laughed it off, heart racing. It was supposed to be nothing. Just a harmless flirtation to remind her she still existed. But one harmless moment blurred into another. Coffee breaks, glances that lingered too long, the brush of fingers when passing papers. And when his hand finally found hers one rainy evening in the office parking lot, she hadn't pulled away. She should have. Now, standing in that hotel room, she replayed the way Ryan had whispered, "Stay a little longer," when she tried to leave earlier that night. The way his breath had brushed her skin when he'd said her name. She had stayed then, just a little longer, and lost everything that had once made her feel safe. By the time she got home the next morning, dawn was bleeding through the curtains of their living room. The house was silent except for the soft hum of the fridge. Aariz was sitting on the couch, still in his work clothes, eyes red from exhaustion or something deeper. She froze at the doorway, her heels dangling from her hand. His phone was beside him, and the faint blue light reflected off his face. "Where were you?" His voice was calm, but too calm, the kind of calm that hides a storm underneath. "I told you. Something came up at work," she said quietly, forcing her gaze to stay steady. Aariz nodded once. "Work?" "Yes. There was a meeting that ran late. Then the team went out for coffee. I must have lost track of time." He stared at her for a long moment. Then he smiled, but it wasn't his usual smile. It was hollow, sharp at the edges. "At 4 in the morning. Her breath caught. "It wasn't like that, Aariz. I didn't mean." He interrupted her softly. "Amara," I called Sana. Her pulse faltered. Sana, her coworker, the one she'd mentioned to make her story sound believable. "She said she left the office at 9, he continued. "And there was no meeting scheduled last night." The room fell silent. The ticking of the clock grew unbearable. Amara's lips parted, but no words came out. Aariz picked up his phone and turned the screen toward her. There it was, her 4:03 a.m. text glowing on the display. Something came up. He exhaled slowly, his shoulders trembling just slightly. "I didn't want to believe it," he said. "I told myself there had to be an explanation. But I kept seeing it over and over in my head. That message that time. Amara's throat burned. Please, Aariz, just listen. He stood up, the movement sudden, controlled. I listened for months, Amara. Every time you came home late. Every time you said you were tired. Every time you smiled at your phone when you thought I wasn't looking. I listened. Her knees weakened. It wasn't supposed to happen, she whispered. I didn't mean to hurt you. He laughed bitterly. You didn't mean to hurt me, but you did. You didn't mean to lie, but you did. What were you doing at 4 a.m., Amara? Her silence was its own confession. He looked at her like he was trying to memorize the woman he once knew, the woman he'd trusted with everything. Then his phone buzzed again. He didn't look at it. Instead, he picked it up, typed something, and set it down on the coffee table with finality. A moment later, her own phone vibrated. She looked down. His message glared back at her. Stay with him. You're single now. Amara couldn't breathe. The words were simple, but they cut through her like glass. Aariz walked past her, brushing her shoulder lightly, the contact cold and deliberate. He didn't yell, didn't throw anything. He just left the room, leaving behind the faint scent of his cologne, the one she used to love, and the echo of a life collapsing quietly. She sank onto the couch, tears burning her eyes, her phone trembling in her hand. For the first time, the silence wasn't peaceful. It was punishment. And though she wanted to run after him, to beg him to understand, to say it hadn't meant anything, she knew that wasn't true. Had meant something. Maybe not love. Maybe not forever. But something enough to destroy everything else. Outside, the sun crept higher, spilling gold light across the floorboards. It felt cruel, that the world could look so beautiful when hers had just fallen apart. In her mind, fragments of memories replayed. Aariz making her tea the way she liked, the way he'd kissed her forehead before leaving for work, the small, quiet gestures that had once defined their love. How easily she had traded them for a few moments of attention. Her phone buzzed again. New message. From Ryan. Are you okay? She stared at it for a long time. Her reflection in the black screen looked hollow, emptied. Then she deleted his message. And for the first time since 4:03 a.m., she began to cry. For the next 3 days, Amara didn't hear from Aariz. His phone went straight to voicemail. His clothes were gone from their wardrobe, and his toothbrush was missing from the holder by the sink. The only thing he'd left behind was a folded note on the kitchen table that read, "Don't call me. I need space." That word haunted her. Space wasn't just distance anymore. It was a void, one she had carved open herself. She went through her days on autopilot, making coffee she never drank, staring at her reflection until it blurred, and replaying every moment that had led to the text that ended everything. It was strange how quiet guilt could be. It didn't always come with screaming or tears. Sometimes it was just the hum of the refrigerator at 2 a.m., the half-empty side of the bed, or the sound of your own heartbeat reminding you what you've lost. On the 4th day, she gathered the courage to go to Aariz's office. The receptionist looked up, startled to see her. "Oh, Mrs. Khan. I didn't realize. Is Aariz here?" she asked, her voice barely holding together. The woman hesitated. "He's not in today. He's been working remotely." Amara nodded, pretending she'd expected that. But her chest tightened anyway. Outside, she sat in her car for almost an hour, staring at the steering wheel. Everything inside her screamed to drive to his mother's house, to beg him to talk, to explain. But what was there to explain? That she'd felt unseen. That loneliness had convinced her to destroy the only person who had ever truly loved her. No explanation would make it less cruel. When she finally started the car, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You could have told me you were married, Amara." Her stomach dropped. Ryan. He must have changed his number. She hesitated before replying. "You knew. You just didn't care." The response came quickly. "And you did." She stared at the screen, trembling. Then she turned the phone off. That night the rain started. It was the same kind of rain as the night she'd first kissed Ryan. Heavy, relentless, almost mocking. Amara stood by the window, watching it streak down the glass, distorting the streetlights. The room was dark except for the soft glow from her phone charging on the counter. The memories came rushing in uninvited. Ryan's touch, his laugh, the dizzying thrill that had made her feel alive. But beneath all that excitement had always been an undercurrent of fear, the quiet knowledge that what they were doing was wrong. Now that thrill felt cheap, fleeting, and not worth what it had cost. When the knock came, it startled her. She wiped her eyes quickly and opened the door, and there he was. Aariz. He looked exhausted, his face unshaven, his clothes wrinkled. But his eyes were calm. "To come." She froze. "Aariz. I came for my files," he said. His voice was low, controlled. "And to talk." Her breath caught. "Please come in." He stepped inside, not looking around the house that had once been theirs. Amara's hands shook as she poured him a glass of water, the clinking of ice louder than it should have been. Aariz took it, sipped, and set it down. Then he looked straight at her. "Why?" The word hit her harder than any accusation could. Her throat tightened. "I don't know. Maybe I was lonely. Maybe I thought you didn't see me anymore." "I didn't see you." His tone wasn't angry, just disbelieving. "Amara, I worked late so you wouldn't have to worry about bills. I cooked dinner when you were tired." "Saw you." "I just thought you saw me too." Tears blurred her vision. "I did, Aariz." "Do." "I just made a mistake." He leaned back, shaking his head slowly. "A mistake is burning dinner. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. What you did was a choice." Her lip quivered. "You're right." The silence that followed was unbearable. Finally, Aariz exhaled. "Do you love him?" She didn't answer right away. Because the truth was messy. She had wanted Ryan, but love? Well, that wasn't what it was. She shook her head. "No." He looked down at his hands, the faintest smile touching his lips. Not of amusement but resignation. "Then you destroyed us for nothing." Her heart cracked open. She stepped closer. "Aariz, please. I'll do anything. Therapy. Counseling. I'll quit my job. Just, please don't give up on me." He studied her face, eyes searching, maybe for the woman he used to know. But after a long, aching pause, he said quietly, "I think I already have." That night, when he left again, he didn't slam the door. He closed it gently, as if sealing off a chapter of his life that no longer belonged to him. Amara sank to the floor, the sound of rain mixing with her sobs. She wanted to hate Ryan, but she couldn't. She wanted to hate herself, but she was too numb. Days turned into weeks. Aariz didn't come back. The silence became her punishment. The empty side of the bed, the untouched coffee mugs, the faint smell of his cologne that still lingered on the pillow. She went to work every day pretending everything was normal, but inside she was unraveling. Ryan tried calling twice, then stopped. Maybe he moved on. Maybe he found someone else to ruin. But she didn't care anymore. One evening, she received an email from Aariz's lawyer. Divorce papers attached. Her hands shook as she opened the file. His name. Then, at the bottom, a single line from Aariz himself. "I forgive you. But forgiveness doesn't mean I can live with you." She didn't cry this time. She just sat there, staring at those words, feeling the final thread snap inside her. It was strange, she thought, how people talk about heartbreak like it's an explosion, sudden, loud, catastrophic. But in truth, it's quieter than that. It's the sound of drawers closing, doors clicking shut, and your own breath catching in an empty room. A year later, Amara still wore her wedding ring. Not out of hope, but as a reminder. She had moved into a smaller apartment near Clifton, started painting again, tried to build something resembling peace. People at work said she looked stronger, more composed. But every night when she scrolled through her old photos, she paused at one. Her and Aariz laughing in the kitchen, flower on her cheek, his arms around her waist. The simplicity of that moment haunted her. Sometimes she drafted messages to him. "I miss you, I'm sorry, can we talk?" But she never sent them. Because she knew that some things once broken can't be repaired. And sometimes late at night when she caught her reflection in the window, she'd whisper to herself, something came up, and almost laugh at the cruelty of it. How those 3 words had destroyed her entire life. Months later, Amara ran into Aariz at a bookstore. He was standing by the counter, holding a novel, his expression peaceful. When he saw her, his eyes widened slightly, then softened. "Amara," he said quietly. She smiled weakly. "Hi." There was an awkward pause, the kind filled with too many unspoken things. "How are you?" he asked. "I'm better," she said truthfully. "You?" "I'm okay." He hesitated. "I got engaged." The word stung, but she nodded. "She's lucky." He gave her a sad smile. "Take care of yourself, Amara." "You too." He left, the bell above the door chiming softly. She stood there for a long moment, the smell of paper and ink surrounding her, the weight of everything she'd lost pressing down, but also, strangely, a fragile sense of release. Because for the first time she understood something. The worst part of betrayal isn't losing the person you love, it's realizing you've lost yourself in the process. And now, slowly, painfully, she was learning to find herself again.